Okay. Good morning, board, staff, and members of the public. After my statement, the chairman will open this meeting and explain the rules for this electronic meeting. Please keep your microphone on mute when you are not speaking. The technical support team may proactively mute participants if the microphone is picking up background noise, much like a bird clock. Board members should check to make sure the microphone is not muted before speaking. You may text me at 540-336-3948 at any time during your meeting if you need technical support, and an IT tech will call your cell phone to assist. I now turn the meeting over to Chairman Allen.
Thank you, Jewel. In accordance with the governor's state of emergency declaration and executive orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors continuing ordinance, and the General Assembly 2020 Budget Amendments 28 and 137, Loudoun Water will meet today in an electronic meeting. In compliance with these special procedures, only action items necessary to continue operations of Loudoun Water and the discharge of its lawful purpose, duties, and responsibilities will be discussed during today's meeting. Reports and other financial information are available on board docs. Public notice and meeting access information was provided on the Loudoun Water website. A recording of the meeting will be available on the Loudoun Water website at a link that will be displayed. Board members wishing to speak are reminded to press unmute and identify themselves by name so that staff can accurately capture comments. All items will be recommended to the March 11th, 2021 board meeting. The board secretary will now take a roll call attendance of the committee members.
Mr. Allen?
Here.
Mr. Byers?
Here.
Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. And Mr. Koblis is also in attendance.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move. So move, Sean.
Okay, I have Mr. Kelly.
I'll second it.
Mr. Byers?
That's Mr. Campbell, but same difference.
Mr. Campbell, thank
It is a
you.
compliment.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
And Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our first action item is the 5-year plan of finance by Mr. Carnes.
Good morning, Mr. Allen. Thank you. So the first item is the 5-year plan of finance for the years 2021 through 2025. Before we get into too much detail, I did want to let you know that we consulted with Davenport, our financial advisors, on this presentation and the model, and they are in agreement with everything that you'll see here today. So this first slide really just kind of walks you through how the 5-year plan is developed. We take the inputs, the big one being the capital spending plan and the CIP, which really drives our need for borrowing over the 5-year period. The operating budget plus the debt service payments really sets your cash goal balance, which is 2 to 3 times the 3-year rolling average of the operating budget plus debt service. And then the operating budget plus the user rates, those two together have the greatest impact on our debt coverage tests. So we take those three, and the output is the financing plan, which shows that we have enough funding available to meet our operating and capital needs. So just a couple of considerations in this 5-year plan. The CIP for 2021 through 2025 did increase approximately $38 million from that same 5-year window that was presented last year. And that's mainly due to the inclusion of the work for the extension of service to the TPA and JLMA, as well as some more accurate cost estimates. And then the growth estimates, if you'll recall from the 2021 budget that you approved last December, we did deviate from the ERC projections from the county. We reduced those projections to 2,200 for this year. The years for 2022 through to 2025, we kept the same estimates. And just a note there, the Fiscal Impact Committee at the county has begun meeting. And so any changes that they make to their growth projections, we will update this plan as well. So one of the outcomes of this plan is that it does show a need for borrowing $20 million in 2025. The plan that we presented to you last summer also called for a $20 million bond issuance, but that was projected to be in 2023. The reason for the push out of 2 years is mainly because we ended 2020 with $30 million more in the bank than we anticipated in the summer. And that's largely due to we received 800 more ERCs than we anticipated in the plan last year. And as you know, we historically underspend both the operating budget and our capital spending plan. So there were some savings there as well. So those two together pushed out the borrowing need. And just a note that any debt issuance directly impacts your user rates, as the users pay 100% of the interest and 20% of the principal. And as you'll see throughout this 5-year window, we stay above the 2 times cash floor at all times. So one of the things that the rating agencies have pointed out is that Loudon Water has a reliance on availability charges. And so to rectify that, you created a new policy in 2018 that stated the total annual debt service coverage without availability charges must be at least 1 times. And as you'll see, during this 5-year period, it ranges between 1.84 and 2.47, so well above the 1 times that is required. Another one of your policies is debt service coverage with availability charges, and that is 1 times our coverage. And again, we are well above that with 3.52 to 4.64 during this 5-year window. And so here's the actual model here. So a couple notes, you see we have lower ERCs this year based on our staff analysis, and then the rate increases were 2.5%, which you approved last fall. The projections for ERCs for the other years are from the county, and then the 3% rate increases for the years 2022 through 2025 actually come out of the rate model that was completed in 2018. We are currently underway with our 2021 rate study, and so these numbers will change or possibly change depending on the outcome of the rate study, and this whole model will be updated in conjunction with that to make sure we stay in compliance. So as you see with the reduction in ERCs, you can see our non-operating revenues start to drop off pretty dramatically there. And then you can see our need for borrowing shows up in 2025 and the associated new debt service with that. And then this is our ending cash balance for the years 2021 through 2025. You can see the 2 times cash floor and 3 times cash floor, and without the 20 million borrowing in the 211 here includes the 20 million borrowing. So without that, we would be below the 2 times cash floor of 206. And then these are your coverage tests, and as you can see, we are well above those for every year within the 5-year window. So the path forward, if you approve the plan today, we will bring this to the full board next month for their endorsement. And as I mentioned, this plan will be updated in conjunction with the 2021 rate study to make sure those coverage tests are continued to be met. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Byers has a question.
Yeah, Brian, I noticed the expense for purchased water, it starts to go down a little bit, but 5 years from now, it's essentially the same as what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to be purchasing less water, but it's more expensive, or the same amount, or how does that work?
So I think that's a great question. When we did this is, like I mentioned, it's based on the numbers from 2018. And so I don't think we were exactly sure how much water we would be producing at Trap Rock versus still purchasing from Fairfax. And so I do expect that number will probably change as we go through the rate study this time.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
Mr. Kobus has a question.
Morning, Brian.
Good morning.
So you made a comment in like the first or second slide that we were going to not use the county's ERCs, but use our own, which was, I think you said, was less than what they are predicting. Can you explain that a little bit?
So the county projections for 2021 was 2,900 ERCs. And when we did the budget for 2021 last fall, we had seen less growth, due to COVID than we had anticipated for 2020. And so we did a staff analysis internally. We worked with land development and our business relations group, and they looked at commercial plans and what they were anticipating in 2021. And we looked at residential growth that we'd experienced in 2020 and didn't feel that 2,900 was realistic. And so based on what we saw, we thought 2,200 was a more reasonable number to project for this year. And so that's why we changed just for 2021.
I just want to make sure we're not on a slippery slope here. We've always followed, ever since I've been here, we've always followed the county. So I just want to make sure that we're not going to get something to backfire towards us either way. By us creating our own ERC predictions. We've always used that in all the meetings that I've known. It's like, well, the reason why we do this is because, that's what the county said. So now we're going out on a different limb, and it's a slippery slope, and I just want to make sure that we understand that.
Sure, absolutely. I would anticipate that going forward, we would go back to those projections. I don't think their projections have been updated since 2017, if I'm correct.
Okay.
So I think this is probably just a 1 year outlier for us.
Okay, that's a good point. Thanks.
Mr. Kelly has a question. Mr. Kelly, I think you're muted, sir.
All right, thanks, Jewel. Morning, Brian.
Good morning.
2 questions, if I may. First one has to do with personnel expense. Is that just the increase in that? It's modest, but is that just normal merit increases, or are we talking about an addition to staff?
Well, in the rate study, it's projected on a percentage basis. And so it's not it's both. It would be both. We didn't, in the rate study, include new positions necessarily. It's just based on kind of historical percent growth. So that includes merit plus new positions.
Okay. All right. Thanks. And the second one had to do with the comment you made about availability charges, and concerning the rating agencies and so forth. I know a few years back we had kind of a struggle getting Moody's to move us up to AAA. The other 2 rating agencies seemed to be okay, and the concern was that we didn't have enough operating revenue to cover operating expenses. That there was a reliance on availability charges. I thought that already had been addressed. Is that still a concern of any one of the 3 rating agencies?
I think they still look at that, just that we have so much availability charges, but your new policy, the one times without availability charges, has really kind of eased their concern.
Good. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? I have a couple, if you don't mind. In the 38 million, in the first slide, you talked about there's a 38 million increase for the 5-year period coming up in the CIP, primarily due to TPA and JMLA as well as milestone. Does that number, I know we're getting 10 million from the state for Milestone. Is that number figured into that 38 million?
It's not. Nope, that is not included yet.
Do we anticipate including that so it would reduce the number to 28 million?
I would, yes. Once we kind of learn more about what that looks like, yes, I would anticipate that would be included going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And then, I know there's a mad dash now on the corporate side to try to issue as much debt as possible, because it seems like everyone's anticipating much higher rates with all the stimulus money flying around there. So, I know that's a slippery slope trying to jump out early and issue debt now while rates are low. But does Davenport weigh in and say, look, don't wait another 4 years. Why don't you do the 20 million now? Do you have any discussion around that subject?
So yes, when they reviewed this, we did talk about debt issuance, and to be honest, their feeling was that 20 million will probably just be pushed out again, based on what they've seen historically with us. Is the borrowing needs for the past few years just continue to be pushed out. So they did not recommend going to market early for that 20 million.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Mhm.
Mr. Koblos has another question.
Yeah, mine's quick. So the 20 million goes to 10 million if we get the 10 million from the state?
Possibly, yeah. I would anticipate this model changing quite a bit, honestly, based on the outcome of the rate study. Because like I said, the years 2022 through 2025 were really created in 2018 for the revenues and the rate projections there. And so there could be some changes in there as well.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with that, if there's no other questions,
Mr. Kelly does have a question, sir.
Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. Just to follow up on the previous question with the state money, are there any hooks on that? Is there any clawbacks or any performance hurdles, or is it just an outright grant? Here's the money, go forth and prosper.
I honestly don't know what the details of that are yet. I don't know if we've been sent anything from VDEM yet, but my understanding was it was a grant, and so we would just apply for reimbursement, and it would be $10 million with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That was my understanding too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just don't have any details yet. We haven't even been notified by the state that we got the money. We read it in the paper too, so we're just waiting for the confirmation and then all the details. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
thank you.
and the state hasn't been notified by the feds yet either. We had to share that article with them, so.
But that's a really good question. The whole purpose of the grant is for FEMA, right? So what are they going to want in return? I'm sure there's going to be some kind of priorities for the water. Anyway, we'll worry about that when it comes out.
Correct. All right. Does anyone else have any questions on the 5-year plan of finance? All right, so we don't need a motion. We just put this on action for the next board meeting, correct?
We typically do take a motion in a second and then recommend it for action or consent.
Okay. All right. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to put this on the next board meeting for action.
Okay.
I'll second it. This is Brent.
Okay. If there are no more questions, I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Right. And
Okay.
Mr. Allen, did you say you wanted this on action?
Yes, please.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. The next, we're on to informational items. The first one is the quarterly investment review, and Mr. Carnes is up again.
So this is for the quarter ending December 31st, 2020. We ended the year with approximately $320 million, and you can see that a large was in liquidity, and that was the result of two factors: was the large influx of ERCs that we received in December. So we had a large influx of cash associated with those. And then we had 2 large commercial papers mature at the end of the year as well. So as you can see, our average yield has been steadily going down. When we reinvest, we are reinvesting at much lower rates than the investments that matured. So it's pretty much down across the board here. So as I mentioned, we had 2 large commercial papers mature at the end of the year. There were no real maturities during the quarter until the end of the year, so we didn't get any money invested. But since then, we have invested approximately $70 million, and we have plans to invest between 20 and 30 million more before the end of this quarter. And just for reference, some of the rates we've been getting, we invested a little bit in commercial paper and got 0.2%, a couple treasuries, 0.11%. And we did manage to get a couple corporates. One was pretty far out, and we were able to get almost 0.8%. So that's pretty much the best we've been able to do. We've been focusing more on diversifying our portfolio and filling in holes in our maturity schedule, not so much chasing rates because they're so bad. So that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about this.
Mr. Byers has a question.
Yeah, Brian, obviously rates are moving in a bad direction, but going out, the 10 years actually popped up. I think it was like 137 or something the other day, which doesn't sound exciting, except that's like 45 basis points higher than it was, 8 months ago. What kind of maturities are you, how far out are you willing to go?
We're only allowed to go out 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions on the quarterly investment review? All right, you're up for the January financial summary.
So just one note here, this is draft as we are still finalizing fiscal year 2020. The audit actually begins today. We're meeting with the auditors later today to talk about some things. So we're still finalizing all these numbers. So these are subject to change. You'll see revenues are a little under projection here, and that's mainly due to the non-operating revenues, your availability charges. We only saw 65 ERCs in January. So far in February, we've added an additional 153. So we picked up a little bit in February, but there have been no data center connections so far this year. Most of those paid at the end of 2020. Expenses, they're a little over projection. The 2 drivers there are the contractual services, and that's due to we receive bills from DC Water quarterly. In our projection, we have projected to receive that in February, and we got it in January. So that number will change next month. And then depreciation is also over forecast. We actually haven't run depreciation yet. This is just an estimate. And so I expect that will change once we actually run it once fiscal year 2020 is closed. And then, as I mentioned, we only received 65 ERCs in January, so a little under our forecast there. Though we started last year out pretty low as well. And then for the CIP, we usually don't anticipate much spending in January. What we do is in the finance program, and as you see, again, we are well above our projection, and that is because we received the quarterly DC water bill for capital in January instead of February. So this is not an under budget, it's just a miss on when we thought the expense would hit our books. It hit a month early. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Kobliss has a question.
Sir, you're on mute, I think.
God, what a rookie mistake. After 1,000 Zoom calls, you'd think I'd figure that out. Why is there an expenditure for DC Water? Did we pay it early? I mean, just because they sent the bill early, do we just go ahead and pay it? Because, man, that's a great deal for them.
Yeah, we pay it when we get it. So it would still be a 2021 expense regardless, and it's just really sometimes it comes in early February and sometimes it comes in late January, and this time it kind of came in January, a little earlier than we had anticipated. So I mean, the dollar value is not more than what we expected. It's exactly what we expected. It was just when the cash went out the door.
We could have invested that money for a month and made about $300.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? All right. No, item C is the 2021 work plan.
So just a couple things to note is kind of our standard work plan until you get to September. As I mentioned earlier, this is a year where we conduct a rate study. So in September, we'll be coming to you with an intent to revise user rates, reclaimed water rates, availability charges, inspection fees, record drawing fees, CCTV fees, and plan review fees. So there's a lot of work going on to get that to you in September. And then just to note, next month, the only thing on the agenda is the financial summary report. So unless something comes up, we will probably be recommending that we cancel the meeting for March.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
Great job as usual.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I can entertain a motion to adjourn. I guess we're gonna stay.
So moved.
I'll make the motion to adjourn. All right, so I'll second.
And roll call vote, Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
adjourned at 8:27 a.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank
Take
you.
care,
everyone.
everybody.
Good day.
Care,
Thanks,
everyone.
Brian.
Bye.